didn't do, and this is all hearsay, except for what these two people verified. We're about through with our presentation. If there's any question about this, you should remember that we got in contact with a couple of the people that I knew, David Simons and Kittinger, who I flew with. Now, these are the two men, David Simons, who jumped from 108,000 feet. He's a medical doctor. And Kittinger, who jumped from 102,000 feet from a gondola. Almost exceeded the speed of sound coming down. One denied it, and the other one didn't even bother to answer. Kittinger at least acknowledged that I hadn't gotten sick aboard his airplane. Okay? If there's going to be any questions, come on up, pick up one of the phones, and we'll answer to the best of our abilities.
The microphone in the center of the room. We have a few minutes left for questions. Would like to mention while the first person is coming up that this gentleman lives in the Bay Area. He's in a wheelchair and not in very good health. But he was one of the few people who were able to find that indicated that he had seen Eisenhower and seen the plane and heard him speak. He saw the plane land in the morning, and they were due to go out with Indiana back home, and they closed the airport. And Bill told me that as soon as I came in, they parked the airplane at the far runway, and they called it an active runway. And as long as Air Force One was parked at the far end, it was still active, even though the plane wasn't taking off. Stayed there as far as we know, maybe till 10:30, 11:30, or 12, when we think it was towed back over to one of the hangars. We were in contact with 8 guards. We know of 8 guards. We found 2 alive, and got information from one of them. Okay. Yeah. Oh, sorry. We were in contact with some Air Force One people. We were able to find a guard who was with the plane. Now, the plane was parked perpendicular to the UFO that landed in front of the plane. This is when the President got out and walked in for 40 minutes or so. So the air crew did not know what was happening because their airplane was parked perpendicular. We suspect that Colonel Draper, the pilot, knew, and 1 or 2 of the Secret Service agents. How we were able to determine how President Eisenhower got there, he went hunting in Georgia, at Thomasville, Georgia, where he'd been before. On the plane had 13 Secret Service agents. One of the Air Force men, one told me that they only took 4 or 5 when Ike went hunting. Ike was going into the plantation of Secretary of Treasury Humphreys, whom he had appointed, and he stayed there because of his privacy, and the press couldn't go in or out of this plantation. Now, there were 30 reporters with Eisenhower, not on his plane, on a separate chartered plane. The Red Chinese were shelling Formosa. We were evacuating the islands of Quemoy, Matsu, and they called it the Formosa Crisis. Lyndon Baines Johnson in the Senate at that time put together a resolution that passed overwhelmingly in the Senate and in the House that we would go to war with Red China if they set a foot on Formosa. Eisenhower and Don Foster Dulles both said, we will use nuclear weapons if you Red Chinese invade Formosa. Formosa is still free. It's now called Taiwan. Is anybody at the mic yet? Anybody at the mic yet? I can't see myself. So, anyhow, we figured out that the 13 Secret Service agents, and he only traveled with 5, he kept 5 at the plantation going in and out like he was there. And then he came down with a case of the sniffles and was not available for 33 hours. While he was having this severe case of the sniffles, he lands at Bill's Air Force Base, Holloman. He's there, we think, 6 or 7 hours. Now, he arrives back at Thomasville. They're having a big party. All the press for miles around have been invited by Secretary Humphrey to the Glen Everett Country Club at Thomasville, Georgia. Free booze, meal, entertainment, all the press in the country, for miles around, were at that party. It wouldn't have been a soul to see Ike land 25 miles north at Spence Air Force Base when he came back in.
Well, you've heard the story, and that's it. That's all there is.
Does this event with Eisenhower fit into any timeline you may have constructed in terms of what came after this, if this was his first?
There's some things that came afterwards that we're aware of that may or may not be connected. It's our understanding, at least mine, that the extraterrestrials are very interested in our nuclear progress. And they first started showing up a year or so after we dropped the nuclear bomb, the first one set one off in Alamogordo. And I have a feeling that they may have been behind the early peace talks. Eisenhower went to one in July in Geneva called Geneva I in July of 1955. And Red China was there, Russia was there. And by the way, the Russians were changing governments. You know, they were pretty shaky at that time. And Stalin's appointee at the time was Malenkov, had been replaced because he didn't make the 5-year plan, which was one of many. And they were getting ready to replace him with Brezhnev, by the way, who was kind of a crony of Khrushchev. So we were having a Russian government change. At the same time, they were having the Red Chinese shelling Taiwan, and the president goes hunting. Incredible. Incredible. As far as we know, that's the only aftermath of what may have happened. Ike, of course, had his first heart attack in September in Denver of that year.